All right. I was really excited about this new graphical interface, and I still am. It still lets us have a much nicer way to watch games we didn't catch. But I do want to let you know the downside. My computer will not accept this as a graphical capture while I'm recording. It just won't do it. I have to jump through hoops to get it to see it, and it gives me less access to the screen. It means if I want to pull other stuff up, it doesn't work. It will ruin the video. So weirdly annoying to use. Now, let's take a look at Yevon versus Turdz. Yevon had first turn, and he played 6-5, 6-5, and 5. And one of the reasons I think Yevon is, in general, one of the most interesting players on the circuit is he has the most diverse opening range of just about everyone. You might say Vialva's up there, but Yevon plays more corner starters than Vialva. He's the most kind of evenly split between the three starter types. Here, I would say he's honoring Piggy, but he played 6-5, 6-5, 5-6, 5-6, so this is just deeply disrespectful. Um, that said, it's a sort of curious move. He has a plus wall in 2, and there's certainly synergies that play off it. 4-7, 6-5 plays well. But I am skeptical of corner starters. Now, if we look at his hand, he definitely still has cards for all four corners, right? So he does not have a directional weakness. In general, if he did have some kind of directional overcommitment, right? If we looked at his hand and said, he's better going up, down than left, right, then I would say, okay, we could go in 4 or 6 and make sure it's a left right game. I don't think there's any cues like that in his hand. I think he's done a move that, like, he used his utility card, and now he has cards for all four corners, and he's pretty powerful in each direction, so can't take advantage of it that way. So I'd be looking at corners. And the thing about it is, because Yevon's already played 5, if he doesn't have a way to attack some corner, he's not going to suddenly get it. But we should have looked at hands a bit, too. I lined up the cards so that you could see the choices on each. They both went 6-6-3-2. We saw Deli and go 7-5-4-1, and Akiyama later joined him. My instinct would be 6-6-3-2, but that Deli and Akiyama use 7-5-4-1s is a compelling case that those are a good choice as well. They both went 6-6-6-3, not 6-6-6-2, choosing to target sevens over sixes, which is interesting. We've generally seen people leaning the other way so far. 7-7-4-1 I like. I think that's a little stronger than 7-7-4-2. I think you want to be able to pick off those sevens, and I think 3 gaps are better than 2 gaps. Like, there's more 6s and 3s than there are 6s and 4s kind of thing. 4-3-6-7 versus 4-7-6-5. These I thought were the two most likely choices, though we haven't seen a ton of either so far for the one card with each number is unique on the card. And Yevon went for the raw power of 6-5-6-5 on his level on his 2 double number card, while Turdz went for 6-3-3-6, looking to target sevens. All right, reasonable choices on both ends. So let's get what would we do as Turdz here? Well, Yevon has a really surprising amount of stuff covered. Like if we just start checking our corners, 3-6-6-2 and 1, well, that gives them a 2-3-6-6 has that completely covered. 6-6-6-3 and 1, same thing. 6-6-6-3 in 7 is covered by 2 cards together, and we don't actually have very comfortable recaptures, right? Both of our recaptures, we have captures from both squares, but all of them leave weak numbers facing out. And so, for instance, if we recaptured with 4-3-6-7-8, we'd give up 7-1-4-7 safely and 9. We can play 6-3-3-6, but you could see how it could get clunky. For instance, similarly, if we played 3-6-6-2 and 4, if 4-3-6-7 is out of our hand, then 4-7-6-5 and 1 is safe for the opponent. If it isn't, then 6-6-6-3 forces us to have to use 4-3-6-7 to just capture, and again, that's going to have weak numbers facing out. It's hard to play for any kind of advantage when all of your captures have weak stuff facing out, and you have to hold on to very specific cards to have those captures at all. So that's not very appealing. 7-7-4-1 and 7. I mean, is pretty comfortably covered by the opponent, and we have recaptures as well. And our recaptures this time at least have decent numbers facing out. So honestly, that might be better. 4367 in 3 is really well covered by 4765. That's not doable. And 6336 in 9 looks very easily covered by the opponent. So if we just check the corners, this is kind of unpleasant to meet. So let's try to be a little craftier. Let's, rather than looking at our own cards, look at what their cards have trouble against, right? Do they have trouble with sevens facing up? No. Do they have trouble with sevens facing down? Well, not in the middle row, because 7147, but they do in 3. We don't have any sevens facing down, we only have sevens in 3 directions. I didn't need to check that one. Do they have trouble with sevens facing left? Not in 2 or 8. Yes in 9. Can't take a 7 facing out from 9 to the left. What about sevens facing right? Do they have troubles with sevens facing right? Not in 2 or 8. And not in 1 or 7 either. So the only 7 they have trouble taking is a 7 facing out from 9. So one option that might be doable is 4367 in 9. And if they leave you alone, you plan to follow up in 6 that we don't have a very comfortable card to put in 6. Anything is both easily captured and captured with kind of tricky stuff facing out. On the other hand, as long as we have 3662 in our hand, you know, we have many things covered. But that's also the card we'd need to put in 6 to not get comboed. Maybe 7741 we'd play. Yeah, okay. So here's the ideal line. 4367 and 9, and our threat is to play 7741 and 6. And if they play their captures there, well, if they play 2366 and 3, we have 3662 and 2, which combos through 5. And at that point, unless they've set something up, they don't necessarily have combos through 5 in return. And if they capture with 7147, we can still take with 3662. It won't combo through 5, but, it gives us another card locked in. That's maybe an idea. But okay, this is weirdly unpleasant. This is weirdly unpleasant. My other idea here would be that 7147 is a clumsy capturer. And therefore, something like 3622 in 4 has some appeal to me. I'm worried 4765 is just going to like sweep us side to side, and 2366, some combo of those cards. But if we go 3622 and 4, their only ever capture in 7 is 7147. And at that point, we can take that with a 6 facing out and we're safe in 8. So 7 becomes an awkward square for them. But 1 is an awkward square for us. This is uncomfortable. Let's see what Turdz did. Gonna work? Forward, forward. Oh, I ruined the forward stuff, so I have to bring it up, which is a problem. So let's see if I remember, because I put the moves in. I didn't really think about them much. I think Turdz played 6-3-3-6 and 3. I can't bring up other windows because everything will go haywire. So I think this was the move that Turdz played. What's the case for this move? Well, that awkward silence was not meant to be damning of it. I think the case is we have, sames in 2. You have sames in 2, but they're more likely to be devastating for you than devastating for me. Because my sames will go through 5, and 5 is pretty bulky. It's easy to hit other stuff. Well, your same will go through 3, and 3 is not going to combo anything extra. And then I think the other case for it is if you go in 6, maybe it's a little clunky. I have cards facing it. I don't love this move, but I didn't love much of anything. So what should Yevon do? Should Yevon attack it immediately? Probably not. It doesn't look like there's gonna be a really comfortable way to go after this immediately. Yeah, I don't think so. So if you can't go after it immediately, what do you do? Well, I remember the move he played, so that is immediately coming to mind as a nice option. I think he plays 2, 3, 6, 6, and 7, and this was the kind of move that, especially in the closed games, I kept being like, play this. Like, we're first turn, we want stuff to be easy to capture. 2, 3, 6, 6 obviously has basically no interaction with with 3 and 5 anymore, right? It used to be it had a plus wall in 2 for the card in 5, but we now have other cards we'd rather have land there. It sets up 6, 6, 6, 3, and 8, and 7, 1, 4, 7, and 4. And it's just something kind of easy for us to take, right? 6, 6, 6, 3, importantly, has both 4 and 8. So, if you just hold on to that for your last card, it's guaranteed a bunch of captures. It also has 2. We could worry that we're getting over reliant on one card from Yevon's perspective, but this seems the worry about getting over reliant on one card, that might seem like a weird complaint, because often you want, one card with all the squares as your final card, and that just guarantees you can play wins. But if the opponent can force you to play in one of those squares early, and you have to use that card because that's the card for every square, and so as soon as you're forced to use any, if that's the only one you have for those squares, then suddenly it comes out of your hand and you're dead in a bunch of squares, or you just can't play in the square you need to. That's the kind of thing I'm worried about here. All right. My first instinct for Turdz is 6, 6, 6, 3, and 4, because it is safe and I am a simpleton. In reply, we might see 6, 6, 6, 3, and 8. We might see something in 6, but other squares seem unlikely, so I think our calculation is limited to 8 or 6. We could also see something like 4, 7, 6, 5, and 8 if Yevon wants to keep combo potential through 5 open. That would be fair, sure. Because Turdz has to flip 5 to do the move I wanted. So, okay. 6, 6, 6, 3, and 4. Where's Yevon gonna go? Let's say he plays 4, 7, 6, 5, and 8. That is safe as well, and it makes the game 5-5. Turdz doesn't have 5, so he can't sort of play. Already has 5 and doesn't actually want to have 5, so he can't like do tricks playing around 5. So that endgame might be unpleasant. One idea there is to play 7, 7, 4, 1, and 9. Actually, we can put in the moves. I don't have to hold off. One idea here, because often you could play something like here, and Yevon takes it, and then you combo back through 5, but 5 is already yours, so you can't combo back, so it doesn't do anything. But if you could combo back through 5, this would be a pretty comfortable way to hold the game, right? Because you'd play in 2, you're down 6-4, you'd flip 3, 5-5, you'd flip 5, 5-5, because that would have been there, so you'd have been down more, and you'd flip 8 and 6, and you'd actually go up 7-3, and you'd win. Not just tie. So there can be spots with tricks like that if 5 is not yours, but 4, 7, 6, 5 keeps 5 not yours. And here my idea was 7, 7, 4, 1 in 9, with the point that if they go here, you now do combo back and you win. And so you can play that kind of trick. And if they take it this way, their last card is dead, so you win. And if they go for 5 immediately, you go here and you win. And if they go in 1, then both of their cards have a square that's bad. So I think you actually just win here. Let's see what the AI says. Yeah, the AI says 7, 7, 4, 1, and 9 is winning against that. So okay, that's not the card they want to put in 8. On the other hand, if they put a more solid card in 8, it's now available to be captured. maybe here, this is kind of similar, but maybe here you can play in 1. Oh, you took immediately. Oh, the combos don't go anywhere. Right. So this is a tie. But this looks to me like it holds. This move in 4. Let's see what the solver thinks. Okay, it tries the other card in 8. I didn't consider this one yet. And we can just about tie there. Okay. So it looks like 4 would have been or is a decent move. There's probably other stuff. I'm just curious. Let's have it make a move. Solver, see what it thinks. 7741 in 6. Now, first thing to note, 7147 in 9 is covered by 4367. We're starting to make the combos potentially work for us. And another thing to note is 6s aren't really well covered, right? The 6663 wishes it was a 6662 right now, so it would sweep the top left. Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. Looks like a tie, right? All right, so a couple paths here. Is there a way to do it from the corners? That'd take a while to figure out, so let's not do that. Let's look at the game. Turdz plays in 6, but not with 7741. And there's sort of a similar idea, right, to the line we saw with 7741. But maybe it was relevant in some line to have 3662 still in the hand, right? Because the line we saw going in 6, not 4, 6, 3662 and 6, they go 2, you go 3662 and 1, and you've held 6663 in your hand, which we know is good for 4 and 8. This way, you don't get to hold it in your hand. So Yevon played in 2, and now we can't play 3662 and 1. And I guess 7741 versus 3662 and 6 makes very little difference. The opponent can capture either way. They likely end up capturing with the same card. You know, it limits their captures a little, but 6663 is probably not landing in 9. And so maybe 7741 was just using the slightly less useful card as the game could play out. I believe, and now I'm having trouble remembering, but I believe Turdz played in 1. No, but this looks like a tie, right? Why is that not a tie? Yeah, you can switch the order, but why is this not a tie? Alright, one sec. I'm going to pause the video to go check and then come back after I fix the video. It is not a tie because Yevon is cleverer than me. Yevon plays with 7741. Yeah, why was I thinking he had to use 666? Or sorry, no, Turdz plays with 7741, but why couldn't he play with 6663? I'm not sure. We'll get back to that in a sec. Turdz plays with 7741. And yeah, Yevon can just capture this, right? He's up 6-4, and if Turdz goes 8, Yevon is guaranteed double captures. And it finishes. I didn't actually check which card Turdz uses, but we can see it's the same either way. And if Turdz goes 9, he's down 6-4, you can't go 9. What's the problem with this move? Because, you know, if you go here, this trivially ties. So what I think happened, and maybe I'm wrong, I'll have to check the move order again. But if you go here, he must have assumed because it combos through, it loses. But the combo through only hits 6, 8, 9. 6, 8, and 7. This looks like a tie to me. Just clicking make AI move just to like verify. So I think he's yeah. I saw Turdz was bummed about this result, um, but this looks to me like he blew a tie with 4 moves. Maybe the solver isn't working properly. Maybe I'm missing something. This is not the solver that I really think is reliable. But I think he still should hold here. Did Yevon have a better move here? Okay, it wants him to take it this way because there were choices. But this should be fine. All right, so if we look at this game, what I think happened was Yevon made a surprisingly really strong starter in 5. It was really difficult to work around. I say surprising. It might not have been surprising to Yevon or to players who play more like him. I'm not saying like he lucked into it or anything. I'm saying this is not a starter type I tend to trust, but with his card selection, he actually had really good coverage of everything, and so it became a move that was really difficult for Turdz to play around. Turdz went in 3, which I think is probably not optimal, but I couldn't find a move I liked either. And Yevon got rid of the worst card in his hand, right? He immediately said, okay, you've blocked 3. My corner card for 3 is now useless. Not only can I get rid of it, right? Not only can I, like, should I get it out of my hand because it's the worst card in my hand, but I can do so while setting up combo synergies for myself and with weak numbers facing out that are just really easy to take. And this is inherently true in a hand like this, right? This could be a, designed plan as well, and there's a good chance it was, of, whichever corner they play in, that's the worst card in my hand, and it will have weak numbers facing the other way, and I can just chuck it in the far corner. Now, easiest to do in this hand with Abomination, right? This is the card that has the most clear divide, I guess along with movers, 7-1-4-7, but this is one of the 2 cards in the hand where the backside is clearly so weak and thus usable as weakness. Which maybe means Turdz shouldn't go in 3 specifically, that's a square to avoid, because Yevon specifically is this type of response. But I think it really nicely shows like the advantage of a card that's strong in 2 directions and weak in the other 2, where Yevon finds a way. Okay, if it can dominate the squares, it's strong. If it can play up in that top right area, great. And if it can't, well then I can play it as a weak corner in the bottom left, and it is very useful that way too. It's a very easy recapture for me later. I think again Turdz couldn't find a move he was comfortable with. I think 6-6-6-3 and 4 is probably the most comfortable, and that it gives, for instance, winning chances against moves like this, that this wins out of nowhere, suggests it's quite a strong move, due to being able to use combo potential through 5. That's pretty cool, actually. So I think this would have been the way, but I can understand thinking it's uncomfortable. Like, my initial look here certainly says, like, they go 8 with either of these cards, and this looks a little unpleasant for me. I don't have clear plans. This is the kind of position like that, like Seto would play and have really good instincts in, I think, and I wouldn't necessarily. So Turdz again goes in 6, and I was talking in the Delial Akiyama match about how difficult it is to make 2 shaky, to get a top player to make 2 shaky moves. And I think essentially Yevon has sort of done that. He's drawn 2 like a little bit shaky moves out of Turdz. But it's actually still not quite winning. I think Yevon has done fantastic work on his first 2 moves. Both of them gave Turdz difficulties, and both of them I think Turdz was not satisfied with the solution to the problems posed. Right? Both of them Yevon put forth problems that Turdz did find sufficient answers to. Neither of his moves are losing, but both just shaky enough that this is going to be a really unpleasant endgame. And if we just, let's like check the moves quickly. Like, does something like this work? No, because 6-6-6-3 is too dominant in the endgame, right? Too dominant. You can't do things that touch 5 because it combos through. Alright, that's too strong. What about here? Ooh, 7-1-4-7 can also be a crushing sweeper in some of these lines, because it also has 4, so that's too strong. So you couldn't do anything in 9, right? And you're going to spend some time looking at 9, because 9 is a feasible square, right? 9 locks your card in um, and leaves squares open that you want to be able to use, but Yevon can play 1 against any move there, and he beats you, so you can't go 9. Is there any sense to going 8? Well, probably only with this card, so that you can combo back in 4. But they can leave both squares open, and 7147 has both squares. So that doesn't work, and that takes a little while to calculate, right? Because 1 is sort of the last square you check there. It is a logical rejoinder if they have a card that works in both 4 and 8, but you're going to check 9 first. You're probably going to check 4 first, especially because they have combos in 4 worth checking early, and it's going to take a little while to get to this move in 1. So this move also looks... Oh, no, that doesn't work. You combo through everything. Okay. And so you're going to spend time there. Can you spend time in 4? There's probably not much to look at in 4 because so many things get really susceptible to combos. Maybe the move you look at is here. It is safe. So that's worth checking. They combo back, and suddenly you don't have any double captures. Okay, so you discard that, and you're left with 1. And you have 2 cards that reasonably go in 1. And this one holds, but it looks like you're just walking into death, right? Because it looks like, oh, you give them a same at the end. And this is just one of those things of like you have to count it out and get it right when you count it. There was a line in the really fantastic defense Delial played against Akiyama. I think it was their 3rd game. It's the hour-long video. It's probably the second, or it's titled something like Masterful Defense or whatever, but it's the 2nd game in that video. There's a move Delial plays that I didn't think worked. I thought Akiyama had a clear win, and I mentioned it after the game, and Delial said, no, count again, and I counted again, and it turned out something had or hadn't flipped that I thought was the other way at some point, and that meant it actually counted out to work for him. But it looked really terrifying, and he had calculated it very precisely. But then in another game, Delial made a surprising move and won, quite similar to his incredible defense in the previous game. And because he had turned down the kind of obvious move, because the obvious move was met with a big same in 5. But that same in 5 was actually losing. And I think Deli stopped calculating there because it looked so bad to concede this huge 5. And it was another one where it just had to look like a touch further. Now, his move was fine. Both moves were tying. I think the other move was more pressure, but both moves were tying against perfect play. But here, I think we see Turdz dismissing a move, seeing that it kind of runs into the big combo. But if you count it out, it does hold. So Turdz ends up going in 1. And which way does Akiyama do this? Sorry, not Akiyama. Yevon does here. And against either move, he's gonna have 9. So big win for Yevon. Yevon goes on to win the closed game as well. So Yevon will be advancing to the semifinals in a big upset. As I said, there's a big 4 in this tournament, and one of the big 4 was guaranteed to go down because 2 were playing each other. But no one outside of the big 4 has beaten a member of the big 4 in this tournament till now. And I think Yevon really earned it here. The fact that Turdz is not already losing, I think, is kind of bad luck for Yevon. I think he has successfully induced 2 slightly shaky moves from Turdz, but it is somewhat to Turdz's credit that even like shakily in a position I think he was clearly uncomfortable, he didn't actually make losing moves. His combination of 2 shaky-ish moves was not actually sufficient to be losing. But Yevon drew out 2 shaky moves and a poor calculation at the end, and that's really strong play, right? There's 1 save here. Yeah, so great play by Yevon. I think he really deserved this. And he has been playing super well recently. It's also fun because in 2005, Yevon made the TTAC15 finals, and he loses to Kamikaze in 2005. And while he's been a good tournament player ever since, he's never had a run anything like that. He had his 1 finals run, and that was it. And I believe the semifinals run, I didn't check, is going to be his second farthest run ever. 12 TTACs later, 18 years, he's making another run. And I think he's just earned it, right? I think he's just beating strong players. He beat Vialva in the previous round, I think. I probably shouldn't say stuff that I haven't checked and my brain's not fully here right now. But it hasn't been for like 5 days. It's been a nightmare. Anyhow, not that bad, but my chess rating is deeply displeased. My online chess rating. Anyway, uh, but he's beaten a tough field. I did not expect him to get anywhere near this far. But when a player goes way farther than you expected and against really good opponents, the conclusion is not, you know, oh, that's weird. The conclusion is, wow, really well played. And I think looking at this game, we can see that. Yevon is now in the semifinals. He just won a TTN major. I don't include TTN majors in my stat stuff, but that is, or most of it, but that is really impressive. And now combined with this run, he was deservedly my player of the month the last month. This will come out, in December rather than October when it's happening. But this is to say, he is on fire. He is crushing every event. And it would be pretty damn cool if 12 TTACs after his finals run, he comes and wins the whole thing. That'd be pretty damn cool. So the current situation is Tezuka has beaten Vid. Delial is up 1-0 on Akiyama with the closed out of the way. And the winner of that will face Tezuka. Yevon just defeated Turdz 2-0. And Blizzard and Seto are tied 1-1 with only the open game remaining, which will probably happen later today as I record this. And Seto was certainly favorite there, but Blizzard has played great. And I've really liked how Blizzard has actually played the open games. I think one of the most impressive skills to me is navigating tough positions to a tie. And I think fundamentally his hand choices and that Seto has played really strongly have meant every game of his in Open has been very dangerous. And each one he has navigated quite clearly to a tie. There's been a clarity to his tie finding that has been really nice to see, and I think is at a really high level. Now, he's got to make better hands. He's not. I don't think he can win this match if his hands every game have both an up and down weakness, right? I think Seto wins the match if that's true. But Blizzard has played great. And Seto has played great as well. And Seto has pressed both the open games. But I think Blizzard has played at a high enough level that if his hands were okay, he would have been fine. Like, the games would not have been dangerous at all. And so if he makes that adjustment and can keep up his level, he has a real chance to win there. Though Seto is, of course, very large favorite because Seto is very large favorite against, everyone. So we probably have at this point a semifinals of Seto versus Yevon and Delial versus Tezuka. The CPU measure on this just went berserk for a sec, but hopefully the video didn't go nuts. But Akiyama has a very reasonable chance for a comeback. I think Delial was playing magnificently the day they played, but Akiyama was also playing very well, and Akiyama was feeling a bit sick, so if he comes back and is playing better, he certainly has a chance to come back there. I mean, he's so good at this game. There's no one who's a guarantee to take Akiyama out leading 1-0, right? So yeah, 2 matches still in the air. There are favorites in both, but very unclear. And a huge win for Yevon here. Big win for Tezuka on the other side of the bracket as well. And now we're sort of left in this spot as I mutter on just for the last minute or two. There's a chance we get a Delta Bowl finals. Now, Delta Bowl is obviously, in my opinion, the greatest rivalry in Triple Triad history. I think myself versus Yojimbo is probably number 2, but I think Delto is clearly number 1. They faced a few times in the return. The first time we had the tragic misclick where Delial was winning and clicked the wrong square to blow the win and then lost after with when when tilting. The second time they faced in another major tournament, and Seto wins again, this time more comfortably. They also face in Clan League, where Delhi wins after Seto returns the favor of misclicking. Um, so we've had two misclicks determine these matchups. Overall, Seto has had the advantage when they've played, but it's been matches that could very easily go either way in the return. They have faced once before in a final in Triad Wars 6 in 2008, 15 years ago, and Delhi all won, and Seto posted afterwards in the forum, the better player won, which was one of the first forum posts I ever saw, so it stuck in my brain as, oh, Delial and Seto are the two best players, and Delial is the better one. Now, that may have been wrong. I think they're basically equals, but I was right about who the two best players were, but, easy to tell when the first time you log in, the best two players happen to have just played a finals. On the other hand, we could have something like Yevon Tezuka, which is pretty exciting as well. And Yevon versus Delhi, or Tezuka versus Seto, or if Blizzard gets through, oh my god, I'd be hyped for Blizzard. An Akiyama Seto rematch would also be great. They played in Triad Wars 14, and I think Akiyama put together, in the return, in all the matches we've gotten of Akiyama, I think his win over Seto in the semifinals of that tournament was his finest match. Thought he just played a phenomenal match through and through. Just every game he looked like he could be in trouble. He played a move where instantly it clarified the position into a tie. Every time he could play for advantage, he found all the right moves to press. I thought it was a brilliant match. Just like perfectly handled exactly what I'd aspire to do in that kind, like in every situation he was in. I'd hope I could find the move he played, kind of thing. So obviously, if Akiyama gets through too, that's another great player going through. So yeah, congrats to Yevon. We'll see how far he can carry this, but it's pretty exciting, and he played very very well, and he has been playing very very well recently. Clearly in both open and closed and half open because TTN. And so huge congrats to Yevon. Well done.